The great hall of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. Elder Counselor Vexitar stood at the center podium, his blue skin pale with worry. Around him, representatives from dozens of worlds sat in their floating seats, all waiting to hear news they already knew would be terrible. "My fellow beings," Vexitar began, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "After 1,000 years of peace, our greatest fear has returned. The Devourers are moving again." A wave of frightened whispers spread through the assembly. Some of the younger representatives had never heard the name before. Others remembered the old stories their grandparents told about the creatures that ate entire worlds. Far across the galaxy, Captain Li Hyun was having a perfectly normal day. His exploration ship, the New Soul, drifted silently through empty space near the outer rim. His crew of 23 humans were conducting their usual surveys, mapping new star systems and checking for signs of life. Li Hyun was a tall man with kind eyes who had spent most of his 40 years in space. He loved the quiet work of exploration, far from the politics and problems of the inner worlds. His crew trusted him completely, and he had never let them down. "Captain," called Communications Officer Park Gina from her station, "we're getting a priority transmission from home." Li Hyun raised an eyebrow. Earth rarely contacted exploration ships unless something was very wrong. "Put it through to my ready room." In the small private chamber behind the bridge, Li Hyun activated his secure communication screen. The face that appeared belonged to Commander Park Minho, head of Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Division. Park Minho looked tired and worried. "Captain Lee," Park Minho said without any greeting, "I need you to listen carefully. Our long-range sensors have detected massive energy signatures moving toward the inhabited systems. The patterns match something from our historical records." Li Hyun felt a cold feeling in his stomach. "What kind of patterns, Commander?" "The kind that means we might have to break our promise to stay away from galactic affairs." On the Altarian homeworld, historian Kralmon was digging through archives that had not been opened in centuries. The old data crystals were covered in dust, and some were so ancient they required special equipment just to read them. Kralmon was a careful scholar who had spent his entire life studying the past. When the Council had asked him to research the last Devourer invasion, he had expected to find the usual military reports and casualty lists. Instead, he found something much more interesting. The Silent Guardians. He read aloud from a crystal that was nearly falling apart. "Species, unknown, appeared during the final phase of the Devourer War, fought with methods that disturbed even their allies, vanished without explanation after the enemy was defeated. The records were frustrating. Whoever these Silent Guardians were, they had been deliberately erased from most official histories. Only fragments remained, hidden in personal journals and classified military reports. One entry caught his attention. It was written by Fleet Admiral Hexton, who had commanded the final battle against the Devourers 1,000 years ago. "These beings fight like no others I have ever seen. They study their enemy with frightening intensity. They adapt their tactics faster than should be possible. Most disturbing of all, they seem to understand the psychology of warfare better than we understand ourselves. They win battles not through superior firepower, but by making their enemies defeat themselves." Another entry from a different source was even more unsettling. "The Silent Guardians asked to withdraw from galactic society after the war ended. They said their methods were too dangerous to use in peacetime. We agreed, perhaps too quickly. Now I wonder if we made a mistake. What kind of beings voluntarily exile themselves because they are too good at war?" Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Kim Sora was working late in her laboratory beneath the Sol Research Complex. As Earth's leading expert on alien biology, she had been called in to examine some disturbing biological samples. Dr. Kim Sora was a brilliant woman who had devoted her life to understanding how different species adapted to survive. The samples on her table told a story that made her deeply worried. "These are definitely Devourer genetic fragments," she said to her assistant. "But they're different from the historical samples, much different. The Devourers were parasitic creatures that consumed other life forms to fuel their own growth. 1,000 years ago, they had been mindless predators driven only by hunger. These new samples showed something far more dangerous. They've evolved, Dr. Kim Sora continued. They're not just stronger and faster now. They're smarter. Much smarter. She pulled up a comparison on her screen. The old devourers had been like a plague of locusts, destroying everything in their path but following predictable patterns. The new ones showed signs of planning, strategy, and worst of all, learning ability. If these readings are correct, she said to herself, the galaxy doesn't stand a chance with conventional weapons. Admiral Choi Ji-won read Dr. Kim Sora's report in the hidden command center on Luna Base. The base had been built centuries ago, during humanity's last Great War, then sealed and forgotten by most of the galaxy. Now it was coming back to life. Admiral Choi Ji-won was a stern woman who had never lost a battle. She had spent her entire career preparing for the day when humanity might need to fight again. That day had finally come. Convene the Defense Council, she ordered. All members highest priority. The Human Defense Council had not met in full session for over 200 years. Its members were the most senior military leaders from Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies. They had all sworn an oath to protect humanity, even if it meant breaking their promise to stay out of galactic affairs. The meeting was held in a chamber deep beneath the lunar surface. 12 men and women sat around a circular table, each one representing a different aspect of human military power. The situation is clear, Admiral Choi Ji-won began. The Devourers have returned, and they're more dangerous than before. Our sensors show they will reach Earth within 18 months if they're not stopped. General Nam Taik, representing the ground forces, spoke first. What about our isolation treaty? We promised the galaxy we would stay out of their affairs. The Mai treaty becomes meaningless if there's no galaxy left to honor it, replied Fleet Admiral Lee Dong-hyuk. Dr. Kim Sora's voice came through the communication system from her laboratory. Based on my analysis, the galaxy's current military forces have perhaps a 5% chance of stopping the Devourers. Without help, billions of beings will die. The council members sat in silence, each weighing the decision. For 500 years, humanity had lived apart from galactic civilization. They had built their own worlds, developed their own technology, and kept to themselves. The galaxy had been happy to forget about them, but humans had long memories and they remembered what it was like to fight for survival. Lieutenant Yoon Dae-ho was on patrol duty near the Centauri system when his sensors picked up something that changed everything. He was young for a scout pilot, only 25, but he had excellent instincts and the best reflexes in the fleet. Command, this is Scout 7, he reported over the communication channel. I'm detecting massive energy, readings from the Vega system. Scout 7, maintain safe distance and observe only, came the reply from headquarters. Yoon Dae-ho watched in horror as something impossible happened. The star system that had contained 4 planets and 2 billion inhabitants simply disappeared. Not destroyed in the usual sense, but consumed, absorbed, turned into something else entirely. Where Vega 4 had been, now there was only a writhing mass of organic matter that pulsed with its own light. The other planets were being slowly dissolved, their matter flowing into the central mass like water down a drain. Command, Yoon Dae-ho said, his voice barely steady. The entire Vega system is gone. Repeat, Vega system is gone. The Devourers are here. He transmitted everything his sensors had recorded, then turned his ship toward home. Behind him, the thing that had once been a star system began to move, flowing through space like a living ocean. His final transmission to Earth contained only 2 words, but they were enough to end 5 centuries of human isolation. They're back. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was chaos. Representatives from dozens of worlds shouted over each other, their voices mixing into an impossible noise. Some demanded immediate military action. Others called for evacuation plans. A few suggested surrender. Fleet Commander Thexwin of the Crystalline Navy stood at his designated speaking position, waiting for order to return. His crystal-like body reflected the chamber's lights as he prepared to deliver news that would make the panic even worse. Honored Council, he finally called out, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. Our battle computers have run every possible scenario. With our current forces and standard tactics, complete galactic extinction is predicted within 8 months. The chamber fell silent. Even the youngest representatives understood what those words meant. Elder Counselor Vextar looked around the room at faces filled with fear. "What do you recommend, Fleet Commander?" "I recommend we pray to whatever gods we believe in," Thexwin replied quietly. "Our weapons are useless against these evolved devourers. They learn from every attack we make and adapt faster than we can change our strategies." On Earth, President Kang Seojin sat in his office reading files that had been locked away for centuries. The Terran isolation accords were spread across his desk, along with classified reports from the last galactic war. The documents told a story that most humans had forgotten. Humanity had not chosen to withdraw from galactic society. They had been asked to leave. "Excessive use of psychological warfare," read one report from the Altarian High Command. "Human tactics caused permanent mental damage to enemy survivors." Another document from the Crystalline Military Archives was even more direct. "Recommend immediate termination of alliance with Terran forces. Their methods are effective but disturbing. They fight wars by breaking their enemies' minds, not just their bodies." The final report, written by the Galactic Peace Commission, contained the words that had changed human history. "The Terran species shows an unhealthy understanding of warfare psychology. For the safety of galactic civilization, they should be encouraged to limit their contact with other species." President Kang Seojin closed the files and rubbed his tired eyes. Humanity had agreed to isolation because they thought it was best for everyone. Now he wondered if that decision would lead to the death of every living thing in the galaxy. Captain Lee Hyun received new orders while his ship was still traveling toward the inner systems. Instead of returning to Earth, he was told to investigate a distress signal from Nexus 7, a major trading station near the frontier. "How long until we reach Nexus 7? He asked his navigation officer. 18 hours at maximum speed, Captain." Lee Hyun stared at the star charts on his screen. 18 hours might be too late, but they had to try. Nexus 7 was home to over 50,000 beings from dozens of different species. When the new Sol finally reached the trading station, there was nothing left but wreckage floating in space. The massive structure had been torn apart from the inside as if something had eaten it from within. "Captain," called his science officer, "I'm detecting one life sign in the debris field." They found a young Altarian female drifting in an emergency. Her name was Fel Shan, and she was barely alive. When she woke up in the new Sol's medical bay, she could barely speak. "They knew," she whispered when Captain Lee Hyun came to check on her. "The creatures knew everything we were going to do before we did it. Every defense plan, every escape route. They were waiting for us." Lee Hyun sat down beside her medical bed. "What do you mean they knew?" "We had the best military minds in 3 systems working on our defense plans," Felshan continued, her voice growing stronger. "But the Devourers countered every strategy within minutes. It was like they could read our thoughts." This information was immediately transmitted to Earth, where Dr. Kim Sora was working around the clock to understand the enemy. Her laboratory had become the center of humanity's research effort. The original Devourers were defeated through psychological warfare, she explained to a meeting of Earth's top scientists. Humans discovered that the creatures had a hive mind that could be disrupted through specific tactics, but these new ones have developed individual thinking nodes. She pointed to a holographic display showing Devourer biology. Each creature can now think independently while still being part of the larger group. This makes them immune to the psychological attacks that worked before. Dr. Park Jinwoo, her research partner, raised his hand. "If psychological warfare won't work, what will?" "That's what we need to figure out," Dr. Kim Sora replied. "And we need to figure it out fast." Meanwhile, on Mars, engineer Bae Jisu was working in the deep underground facilities where humanity's warships had been stored for centuries. The ships were incredible machines, designed not just as weapons but as adaptive learning systems. Each vessel could modify its tactics during battle, learning from enemy responses and developing new approaches in real time. The technology was so advanced that even humans found it somewhat frightening. "The indomitable soul is ready for deployment," she reported to Admiral Choi Ji-won. "All systems are functioning perfectly." "How many ships can we have ready within the month?" the Admiral asked. 12 capital ships, 36 destroyers, and over 200 fighter craft. "But Admiral, I should mention something about the weapon systems." Admiral Choi Ji-won looked at her with concern. "What about them?" "They're designed to learn about enemy psychology and exploit weaknesses. The artificial intelligence systems are programmed to find ways to break enemy morale, not just destroy their ships. Some of the tactics they might develop could be considered..." "Considered what, Engineer Bay?" "Considered war crimes by galactic standards." The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. "The galaxy might not like our methods, but they'll like extinction even less." The first major battle between the Devourers and galactic forces took place in the Meridian system. Admiral Rexton commanded a fleet of over 300 ships from 12 different worlds. It was the largest military force assembled in 5 centuries. The battle lasted exactly 43 minutes. Admiral Rexton's final transmission was broadcast across the galaxy. "They're not just stronger than before, they're smarter. They anticipated every move we made. It's like fighting an enemy that can see into the future. Request immediate evacuation of all worlds in sectors 7 through 12. We cannot stop them with conventional warfare." Then his signal went dead. The news of the defeat spread faster than the Devourers themselves. Panic swept through the civilized worlds as governments realized their greatest fears were coming true. The creatures that had nearly destroyed the galaxy once before had returned stronger than ever. On Earth, the decision was finally made. "Break the isolation protocols," President Kang Seojin ordered. "Activate all defense fleets and prepare for deployment to galactic coordinates." "Sir," asked his military advisor, "what should we tell the Galactic Council?" "Tell them the humans are coming back." In the depths of space, something else was happening. Long-range sensors detected new energy signatures moving away from the Sol system. The readings were unlike anything in current galactic databases, but they matched perfectly with thousand-year-old records of mysterious ships that had once appeared during the darkest hour of the last war. Captain Lee Hyun received a priority message while his ship was still carrying the survivor from Nexus 7 back to safety. The message was simple, but carried enormous weight. "All exploration vessels return immediately to Terra Base. The fleet is mobilizing. Operation Homecoming is now active." Lee Hyun had heard whispers of Operation Homecoming during his academy training, but he had never believed it was real. It was supposed to be humanity's plan for returning to galactic affairs if the situation became desperate enough. As his ship changed course toward Earth, Lee Hyun wondered what the galaxy would think when they discovered that their old allies had never really gone away. Humans had been watching from the shadows for 500 years, preparing for the day when they might be needed again. That day had finally come. The Devourers continued their advance toward the core worlds, consuming everything in their path. But now they were no longer the only predators moving through the galaxy. Something else was coming. Something the galaxy had almost forgotten, but the universe itself remembered. The legends were about to become real again. The appearance of unknown ships on the long-range sensors sent shockwaves through both the fleeing Council fleets and the advancing Devourer swarms. The vessels were unlike anything in current databases, sleek and dark, moving through space with deadly purpose. Captain Nam Jae-hoon stood on the bridge of his flagship, the dauntless Busan. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency, preparing for their first battle in 500 years. Through the viewport, he could see 11 other human ships maintaining perfect formation. "Open communication channels to all frequencies," Captain Nam ordered. His communications officer nodded and activated the transmitters. "This is the Terran Recovery Fleet." Captain Nam's voice echoed across space, reaching every ship in the system. "All civilian vessels withdraw to safe distance immediately. We are assuming tactical command of this engagement." The message caused immediate confusion among the fleeing Council ships. Elder Counselor Vextar, broadcasting from his command vessel, tried to establish contact with the unknown fleet. "Unknown vessels, this is Galactic Council Command," Vextar transmitted. "Identify yourselves immediately. These are Council-controlled space lanes." The response came from a different ship. "Counselor Vextar, This is Admiral Choi Ji-won of the Earth Defense Force. We have monitored your recent defeats. With respect, your current tactics will result in total extinction within 6 months. Vextar felt his blood freeze. Earth Defense Force. The humans had returned. The Terrans abandoned galactic civilization centuries ago, he said to his tactical staff. Why would they come back now? His question was answered when he received a detailed tactical analysis from the human fleet. The data showed projected Devourer movements, resource calculations, and timeline estimates. According to human projections, the creatures would reach Earth space within 18 months if not stopped at the current battleground. Dr. Kim Sora was aboard one of the human vessels, the research ship Eternal Vigilance. Her mobile laboratory was filled with real-time data about Devourer behavior patterns. After months of studying fragments and recordings, she was finally seeing the enemy in action. Captain, she reported to the ship's commander, the Devourers are showing the individual consciousness nodes I predicted, but there's something else. They're hesitating before major tactical decisions. Hesitating how? Captain Lee Minjin asked. The individual nodes seem to debate with each other for approximately 3 seconds before committing to action. It's a tiny window, but it might be enough. This information was immediately transmitted to Captain Nam Ji-hoon's flagship. The human tactical computers began calculating new approach vectors based on this critical timing data. The first engagement began when Commander Park Min-ho's stealth vessel, the Shadow of Jeju, penetrated deep into the Devourer formation. Unlike the Council's direct assault approach, the humans began with what appeared to be a strategic withdrawal. All units, execute Pattern 7, Captain Nam ordered over the command frequency. The human ships began falling back, seemingly retreating from the much larger Devourer force. The alien creatures, emboldened by this apparent show of weakness, began pursuing the humans with aggressive formation changes. To the watching Council forces, it looked like the humans were about to be destroyed just like everyone else. Counselor, Vextar prepared to witness the end of humanity's brief return to galactic affairs. But something strange was happening. The retreating human ships were not running randomly. They moved in precise patterns, leading the Devourers toward specific coordinates while transmitting detailed scanning data back to the main fleet. Lieutenant Yoon Dae-ho, now commanding a squadron of adaptive fighter craft, demonstrated the evolution of human warfare. His 12 pilots did not follow predetermined attack patterns like Council forces did. Instead, they studied each individual Devourer unit's behavior and modified their approach in real time. Squadron 7, target the hesitation gaps, Yoon Dae-ho ordered. Wait for the individual nodes to start their decision process, then strike, during the debate phase. The results were immediate and dramatic. Devourer units that had been virtually invincible against Council weapons suddenly found themselves vulnerable during those 3-second decision windows. Human fighters slipped through their defenses like shadows, striking at critical points and vanishing before the creatures could respond. What had appeared to be a human retreat revealed itself as something far more sophisticated. The Devourers, pursuing what they thought were fleeing enemies, found themselves drawn into a carefully prepared trap. Human ships that had seemed to be running were actually positioning themselves around the enemy formation. All units execute containment protocol, Captain Nam announced. The trap closed with brutal efficiency. Devourer forces that had been advancing in pursuit suddenly discovered they were surrounded. Escape routes that had been open moments before were now blocked by human vessels that seemed to appear from nowhere. But the humans were not finished. Instead of simply destroying the trapped enemies, they began something that made the watching Council representatives deeply uncomfortable. Human ships started broadcasting specific frequencies directly into the Devourer formations. These were not random signals, but carefully designed psychological warfare techniques based on Dr. Kim Sora's research into creature behavior patterns. What are they doing? Fleet Commander Thexwin asked from his observation ship. They're attacking the creatures' minds, his tactical officer replied, studying the sensor readings. The broadcasts are causing confusion and panic in the Devourer ranks. The effect was devastating. Devourer units that had shown perfect coordination began making Critical errors. Some attacked their own allies, others tried to flee in random directions. A few simply stopped moving entirely, overwhelmed by psychological confusion. The battle concluded with a result that no one in the galaxy had seen for over a year. The Devourers were retreating. For the first time since their return, the creatures had been outmaneuvered and forced to withdraw from a battlefield. Council observers watched in stunned silence as human ships methodically destroyed disabled Devourer units while allowing others to escape. It was not random mercy. The humans were deliberately letting some enemies flee so they could track them back to larger formations. The humans are treating warfare like a science, Councillor Vextar observed to his staff. They study their enemies the way we study plants or minerals. Captain Lee Hyun, commanding the exploration vessel New Seoul, which had been retrofitted for combat, received a communication from Admiral Choi Ji-won. Captain Lee, you are hereby appointed as liaison between human forces and the Galactic Council. Your cultural training makes you the best choice for this position. Lee Hyun accepted the assignment with mixed feelings. He understood the necessity of cooperation, but he also knew how disturbing human warfare methods could be to other species. The aftermath of the battle saw emergency meetings aboard Council command ships. Representatives who had been preparing for evacuation were now debating whether to ask for human assistance or continue trying to handle the crisis themselves. They won, Elder Councillor Vextar said during the closed session, but their methods are exactly what we feared 500 years ago. Would you rather be disturbed or extinct? Asked Fleet Commander Thexwin bluntly. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Meanwhile, Captain Nam Ji-hoon was already planning the next engagement. Human intelligence services had intercepted Devourer communications during the retreat. The creatures were adapting to human tactics faster than expected, but they were also showing signs of something humans could exploit. They're afraid, Dr. Kim Sora reported from her analysis of the battle data. For the first time in their evolutionary history, the Devourers are experiencing genuine fear. Not just caution or tactical concern, but actual terror. Can we use that? Captain Nam asked. Fear is a powerful weapon, she replied. But it's also dangerous. Frightened enemies can become desperate enemies. As the human fleet prepared for the next phase of operations, the galaxy began to process what they had witnessed. The silent guardians of legend had returned, bringing with them methods of warfare that were both incredibly effective and deeply unsettling. The Devourers continued their advance toward the core worlds, but now they moved differently. They had learned that they were no longer the only apex predators in the galaxy. Something else was hunting them, something that understood the art of war better than they understood themselves. The legends had been incomplete. The stories spoke of mysterious guardians who appeared in times of crisis, but they had not mentioned the price of salvation. The galaxy was about to learn that being saved by humans meant accepting their methods, no matter how disturbing those methods might be. News of the human victory spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On the crystalline homeworld, Fleet Commander Thexwin sat in his command center studying battle recordings that had been transmitted from the front lines. The more he watched, the more troubled he became. Play Sequence 7 again, he ordered his tactical staff. The holographic display showed the moment when human ships had broadcast psychological warfare signals directly into the Devourer formation. The effect had been immediate and devastating, but it raised questions that made Thexwin uncomfortable. Sir, his aide asked carefully, are we certain these humans are still our allies? Thexwin did not answer immediately. The beings who had just saved the galaxy were the same species that had been asked to leave centuries ago because their methods were too disturbing for civilized warfare. Meanwhile, Admiral Choi Ji-won's massive command ship, the Unified Korea, approached the temporary council staging area at Bastion Prime. The vessel was enormous, larger than most space stations, and carried enough firepower to destroy entire fleets. The arrival of such a powerful warship caused immediate tension among council representatives. Some saw it as necessary protection against the Devourer threat. Others viewed it as an invasion force that happened to be fighting the same enemy. Request permission to dock, came the transmission from the human flagship. Elder Counselor Vextar granted permission, but he posted extra security throughout the station. The last time humans had been involved in galactic military affairs, the results had been effective but deeply unsettling. Admiral Choi Jawan herself came aboard Bastion Prime for the emergency council session. She was a stern woman with gray hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. When she entered the council, chamber conversation stopped. "Honored counselors," she began without ceremony. "We need to discuss the reality of this war." "Admiral," Vextar replied carefully, "we are grateful for your assistance, but we must address concerns about human methods of warfare." Admiral Choi Ji-won nodded as if she had expected this. "You are concerned because we win battles by understanding our enemy's psychology. You find it disturbing that we treat warfare as a science rather than simply throwing ships at each other until one side breaks." The chamber fell silent. Her words were blunt, but they were also accurate. "With respect, Admiral," Fleet Commander Thexwin said, "your recent victory involved weapons that could be considered violations of galactic warfare conventions. Conventions written by species that have never faced extinction." "Admiral Choi," Ji-won replied, "tell me, Fleet Commander, would you rather follow your conventions or save your civilization?" The question hung in the air like a challenge that no one wanted to answer. Captain Lee Hyun found himself in the difficult position of cultural interpreter between two sides that barely understood each other. His assignment as liaison meant he spent his time explaining human methods to horrified council representatives and council concerns to pragmatic human commanders. "The problem is not that humans are wrong," he explained to Counselor Vextar during a private meeting. "The problem is that humans approach warfare the way other species approach science. We study, we test, we adapt, and we find the most efficient solution." "That's exactly what concerns us," Vextar replied. "Efficiency in warfare often means cruelty. And inefficiency in warfare means extinction," Lee Hyun countered. Meanwhile, engineer Bae Ji-soo was working with council technical specialists to upgrade their defense systems. The collaboration was not going smoothly. Human technology was far more advanced, but it also incorporated elements that made alien engineers uncomfortable. "This targeting system," a crystalline engineer pointed out, "it analyzes enemy psychology, profiles and selects weapons designed to cause maximum fear rather than maximum damage." "Correct," Bae Ji-soo replied matter-of-factly. "A terrified enemy makes more mistakes than a dead one. Fear spreads through enemy formations and weakens overall morale." "But that's psychological torture," the crystalline engineer protested. "No," Bae Ji-soo said patiently. "Psychological torture is what the devourers do to their victims before consuming them. This is psychological warfare, and there is a difference." The second major battle took place in the Meridian Cluster, where a large devourer force had been detected moving toward the core worlds. This time, Dr. Kim Sora's behavioral predictions were put to the ultimate test. The engagement began with something the galaxy had never seen before. Instead of immediately attacking the devourers, the human fleet started broadcasting signals on frequencies that matched devourer communication patterns. "What are they doing now?" Counselor Vextar asked from his observation ship. The answer came from Dr. Kim Sora herself, speaking over the communication channels. "We are using the devourer's own communication networks against them. The broadcasts contain information designed to create confusion and conflict within their formations." The effect was immediate and terrifying to watch. Devourer units began receiving contradictory orders from what they believed were their own command structures. Some units turned and attacked their allies. Others became paralyzed by conflicting instructions. Within hours, a force that could have destroyed several star systems had been reduced to chaos. The humans methodically destroyed the confused and disorganized enemy units, while council observers watched in stunned silence. "The victory is complete," reported Captain Nam Ji-hoon, "but we need to discuss the prisoners." This statement caused immediate concern among council representatives. The devourers had never been known to surrender, and the idea of taking them prisoner had never been considered. "What prisoners?" Elder Counselor Vextar demanded. "Several devourer units shut down rather than continue fighting under psychological stress," Dr. Kim Sora explained. "They are not dead, but they are not functional either." We can study them to learn more about enemy capabilities. The council members looked at each other with growing unease. The humans were talking about studying living enemy soldiers like laboratory specimens. That would be a violation of prisoner rights under galactic law, Fleet Commander Thexwin pointed out. Galactic law assumes that prisoners are sentient beings with individual rights, Admiral Choi Ji-won replied. The Devourers are a hive mind species that consumes other life forms. Do your laws really apply to them? It was a question that no one wanted to answer, but everyone knew the implications. Commander Park Min-ho's intelligence division made a discovery that changed everything. Deep within captured Devourer biotechnology, they found data cores containing information about the true scope of the threat. The current invasion is only the beginning, he reported to the combined human and council leadership. The Devourers have been building massive breeding facilities beyond the galactic rim. The forces we have been fighting are essentially scouts for something much larger. The data showed breeding complexes that could produce millions of Devourer units per month. Worse, the facilities were mobile, moving through deep space like living planets. How long before the main force arrives? Admiral Choi Ji-won asked. 6 months, Commander Park replied. Maybe less. The news sent shockwaves through the council chambers. If the current Devourer forces were just scouts, the main invasion would be unstoppable by any conventional means. We need full military authority over anti-Devourer operations, Admiral Choi Ji-won announced. The current command structure is too slow and too limited for what is coming. You are asking us to turn over control of galactic defense to a species that was exiled for being too dangerous, Counselor Vextar said bluntly. I am asking you to choose between survival and your comfort zone, the Admiral replied. The debate that followed was the most intense in Council history. Representatives argued for hours about the implications of giving humans complete military control. Some species threatened to withdraw from the alliance rather than accept human leadership. In the end, the vote came down to a simple question, posed by Fleet Commander Thexwin. Would you rather be governed by humans or consumed by Devourers? The Council voted by the narrowest margin in their history to grant humanity full operational command of galactic defense forces. As Admiral Choi, Ji-won accepted the appointment as Supreme Military Commander. She addressed the Council with words that would be remembered for centuries. We did not ask for this responsibility, she said. We will not enjoy what we must do to save the galaxy, but we will do it because the alternative is the end of everything. Outside the Council chambers, Captain Lee Hyun received new orders that made him deeply uncomfortable. He was to begin training Council species in human warfare techniques, preparing them for battles that would require methods their civilizations had never imagined. The galaxy had chosen survival over comfort, but they were about to learn exactly what that choice would cost them. The transformation of galactic military doctrine under human leadership was swift and comprehensive. Within weeks of Admiral Choi Ji-won's appointment as Supreme Military Commander, training facilities across the galaxy were teaching warfare methods that most species found deeply disturbing. Captain Nam Ji-hoon established the Combined Tactical Command on Bastion Prime, where officers from dozens of worlds gathered to learn human approaches to warfare. The cultural shock was immediate and severe. War is not about honor or glory, Captain Nam explained to a room full of alien military commanders. War is about making your enemy unable or unwilling to continue fighting. Everything else is personal preference. Commander Veltarn of the AIK, Altarian Defense Force, raised his hand. Captain, these methods you describe, they seem designed to break enemy morale rather than simply defeat enemy forces. Correct, Captain Nam replied without hesitation. A broken enemy cannot regroup and attack again. A defeated enemy might still have fight left in them. The alien officers looked at each other with obvious discomfort. Their military traditions emphasized direct combat, personal courage, and honorable victory. The human approach treated war like a complex engineering problem to be solved through careful analysis and psychological manipulation. Dr. Kim Sora's research team had been working around the clock since gaining access to captured Devourer specimens. What they discovered in their laboratories beneath Bastion Prime was both breakthrough and nightmare. The Devourers have a critical weakness, she announced to the senior staff meeting. Their rapid evolutionary adaptation has created genetic instabilities that can be exploited. What kind of exploitation? Admiral Choi Ji-won asked. Biological weapons specifically designed to target their genetic weaknesses, Dr. Kim Sora replied. We can create viruses that will cause their evolutionary systems to turn against themselves. The silence in the meeting room was heavy with implications. Several council representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Doctor, Elder Counselor Vextar said carefully, are you describing genocide? I am describing survival, Dr. Kim Sora replied. The Devourers are not a traditional species. They are a galactic plague that consumes other life forms. Normal ethical considerations may not apply. Admiral Choi Ji-won studied the faces around the table. She could see the fear and disgust in the alien representatives' expressions. Doctor, how effective would these weapons be? Completely effective, Dr. Kim Sora answered. Within months, we could reduce the entire Devourer population by 90% or more. And the ethical implications? The ethical implications of using these weapons are significant, Dr. Kim Sora acknowledged. The ethical implications of not using them include the extinction of every other life form in the galaxy. Wing Commander Yoon Dae-ho was experiencing different problems with his integrated human-alien fighter squadrons. The alien pilots were skilled and brave, but they struggled with humanity's fluid approach to combat tactics. Squadron 7, break formation and engage targets of opportunity, he ordered during a training exercise. The alien pilots hesitated. Their training emphasized formation flying and coordinated attacks. The idea of breaking formation and making individual tactical decisions was foreign to their military culture. Sir, called Lieutenant Carvin, a crystalline pilot. We need specific target assignments and approach vectors. Negative, Yoon Dae-ho replied. Each pilot will analyze the battlefield and select their own targets based on real-time conditions. Adapt your tactics to what you see, not what you planned. The exercise was a disaster. Alien pilots who were excellent at following orders struggled when asked to think independently during combat. Several collisions occurred when pilots tried to improvise maneuvers they had not practiced. Commander, Admiral Choi Ji-won said after reviewing the training reports, how long before our allied pilots can effectively use human tactics? Honestly, Admiral, some of them may never adapt. Their entire military culture is based on order, discipline, and following established procedures. Our approach requires individual initiative and creative thinking under pressure. The Admiral nodded grimly. Continue training, but start identifying pilots who show aptitude for our methods. We may need to create separate human-led units for the most critical missions. Engineer Bae Jisu was working on modifications to galactic defense systems when she made a discovery that changed the entire strategic situation. Her deep space monitoring network detected massive energy signatures moving toward the Galaxy 3 months ahead of schedule. Admiral, she reported urgently, the main Devourer fleet has accelerated their approach. They will arrive in 3 months, not 6. Admiral Choi Ji-won felt her blood freeze. 3 months was not enough time to complete the defensive preparations they had planned. How large is this main fleet, she asked. Conservative estimate, over 10,000 bioships, each capable of consuming a planet. Optimistic estimate, we are looking at the end of galactic civilization. The news sent panic through the council leadership. Plans that had assumed 6 months of preparation time were suddenly worthless. We need to consider more aggressive options, Admiral Choi Ji-won announced to the emergency session. I am proposing Operation Deep Strike. What does that involve? Counselor Vextar asked, though his expression suggested he did not want to know the answer. We take the war to them before they reach inhabited space, the Admiral explained. Small teams of specially trained operatives will infiltrate Devourer breeding facilities and attack their reproductive capabilities directly. The plan was audacious and terrifying. It involved sending human soldiers deep into enemy territory, with weapons designed to cause maximum biological damage to an entire species. Commander Park Min-ho volunteered to lead the mission before Admiral Choi Ji-won even finished explaining the details. Sir, he said, My special operations teams have been training for exactly this type of mission. We can infiltrate Devourer space and deploy the biological weapons Dr. Kim Sora has developed. Commander, you understand that this mission violates several galactic conventions on biological warfare? Counselor Vextar pointed out. Yes, sir, Commander Park replied. I also understand that following galactic conventions will result in the death of every living thing in the galaxy. The debate that followed was heated and emotional. Council representatives argued about the morality of using biological weapons, even against an enemy like the Devourers. Some threatened to withdraw their support if humans proceeded with the mission. Let me be clear about something, Admiral, Choi Ji-won said, ending the debate. We are not asking for your permission. We are informing you of our intention. Humanity will do whatever is necessary to prevent galactic extinction, with or without Council approval. The statement sent shockwaves through the Assembly. The humans were essentially declaring that they would act independently if the Council refused to authorize necessary actions. Captain Lee Hyun found himself in an impossible position as cultural liaison. Council representatives demanded that he intervene to stop human military actions they found objectionable, while human commanders expected him to support necessary operations regardless of alien sensitivities. Captain, Counselor Vexatar said during a private meeting, your people are becoming exactly what we feared they would become 500 years ago. Counselor, Lee Hyun replied sadly, my people are becoming what is necessary to prevent your extinction. There is a difference, even if you cannot see it. The preparation for Operation Deep Strike proceeded with grim efficiency. Commander Park Min-ho's teams received equipment that pushed the boundaries of military technology. Stealth ships capable of avoiding detection in Devourer space, biological weapons designed to cause cascading failures in enemy reproductive systems, escape plans that assumed most operatives would not survive the mission. Gentlemen, Commander, Park addressed his volunteers. We are about to undertake a mission that our own allies consider morally questionable. History will judge whether we are heroes or war criminals, but history will only exist if we succeed. The ships departed for the Galactic Rim under absolute secrecy. Their destination was the vast breeding complexes where the Devourers were preparing their final assault on galactic civilization. As the stealth vessels disappeared into deep space, Admiral Choi Ji-won received troubling intelligence reports. Long-range sensors showed that the main Devourer fleet had changed course slightly, heading directly toward Earth rather than the galactic core worlds. They know, Dr. Kim Sora said when she analyzed the new trajectory data. Somehow the Devourers have identified humanity as their primary threat. The realization that Earth itself was now the primary target changed everything. The war was no longer just about saving galactic civilization. It had become a direct confrontation between humanity and the ancient enemy that had returned from the void. In the depths of space, Commander Park Min-ho's infiltration teams approached their targets, carrying weapons that could save the galaxy, or damn their souls. Behind them, Admiral Choi Ji-won prepared Earth's defenses for a battle that would determine the fate of every living thing in the universe. The final battle began not with the clash of massive fleets but with a single transmission from the depths of Devourer space. Commander Park Min-ho's voice crackled through the communication channels, distorted by distance and interference. Operation Deep Strike successful, he reported. Biological weapons deployed at all primary breeding facilities. Enemy reproductive capabilities severely compromised. The news should have been cause for celebration, but Dr. Kim Sora's analysis of the mission data revealed something unexpected and terrifying. The Devourers are experiencing fear, she announced to Admiral Choi Ji-won. Not tactical caution or strategic concern, but genuine existential terror. For the first time in their evolutionary history, they face the possibility of extinction. Is that not what we wanted? The Admiral asked. Terrified enemies are unpredictable enemies, Dr. Kim Sora replied. The biological weapons have succeeded beyond our projections, but they may have also pushed the Devourers into desperate action. As if to confirm her words, long-range sensors detected massive movement in Devourer formations. The enemy fleet, instead of withdrawing or seeking defensive positions, had accelerated to maximum speed and was heading directly toward Earth. Admiral Choi Ji-won coordinated the largest military operation in galactic history from her command, ship orbiting Luna. The combined fleet included vessels from every council species, united not by trust or friendship, but by the absolute necessity of survival. Final fleet count, she requested from her tactical officer. Human vessels: 47 capital ships, 112 destroyers, 386 fighter craft. Allied forces: over 2,000 ships from 31 different worlds. The numbers were impressive, but everyone knew they faced an enemy that had grown even more dangerous in their desperation. Captain Nam Ji-hoon commanded the human tactical group from his flagship, studying sensor readings that grew more troubling by the hour. The approaching Devourer Armada was massive beyond anything they had faced before, but there was something different about their formation patterns. "They're not advancing randomly," he reported to Admiral Choi Ji-won. "The enemy fleet is moving, with unprecedented coordination. They've learned from our previous encounters." Dr. Kim Sora, monitoring the enemy from her mobile laboratory, confirmed the worst fears. The Devourers have undergone another evolutionary leap. They're not just coordinating better, they're thinking strategically. They've developed the capacity for long-term planning, sacrifice, and even honor. The realization sent shockwaves through the command structure. Humanity had succeeded in making their enemies more dangerous by forcing them to evolve beyond their original nature. Wing Commander Yoon Dae-ho led his integrated fighter squadrons in the first engagement, expecting to use the same psychological warfare tactics that had been so effective before. Instead, he found himself facing an enemy that seemed to anticipate every human strategy. "They're countering our moves before we make them," he reported over the communication channels. "It's like fighting an enemy that can see into the future." The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. Instead of the quick, decisive victory the humans had achieved in previous engagements, they found themselves locked in a prolonged conflict with an enemy that had learned to think like them. Engineer Baejisu's adaptive weapon systems proved crucial as the battle raged across multiple star systems. Human ships modified their tactics in real time, but so did the Devourers. What emerged was not the one-sided battle the galaxy had expected, but a war between equals. "Both sides are evolving during the battle itself," she reported to Admiral Choi Ji-won. "We push them to adapt, and they push us to adapt. It's like watching accelerated evolution in real time." The turning point came when Captain Lee Hyun, commanding a damaged vessel deep in enemy lines, received an unexpected transmission on human communication frequencies. The voice that spoke was unlike anything they had encountered before. "Human vessel, this is Devourer Prime Consciousness. We request communication." The message was spoken in perfect Korean. Captain Lee Hyun, despite his training and experience, felt a chill run through his body. "How do you know our language?" "We have studied you for centuries as you have studied us," the voice replied. "We have learned to think as you think, to plan as you plan. We have become mirrors of your species." The conversation that followed changed everything. The Devourer consciousness revealed that their evolution had not been random. Every adaptation, every improvement had been specifically designed to counter human strategies and psychology. "You made us what we are," the voice continued. "Through conflict, you forced us to transcend our original nature. We are no longer the mindless plague we once were. We have become something new." Dr. Kim Sora, monitoring the conversation from Kyu, her laboratory, made a discovery that stunned everyone. The biological weapons didn't just damage their reproductive systems, they triggered a final evolutionary leap. The Devourers have developed individual consciousness, strategic thinking, and moral reasoning. Admiral Choi Ji-won realized that they were no longer fighting the same enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. Through humanity's intervention, the Devourers had evolved into something entirely different. "What do you want?" she asked, during a direct communication with the Devourer leadership. "What we have always wanted," came the reply. "Survival. But we no longer require the consumption of other species to achieve it. Your biological weapons have shown us new possibilities." The final phase of the battle became something unprecedented. A negotiation conducted while fleets continued to fight around them. Both sides maintained combat positions while their leaders explored possibilities that had never existed before. President Kang Seojin, joining the communication from Earth, made a proposal that would have been impossible to imagine at the beginning of the war. Coexistence, he said simply. Both our species have evolved through conflict. Perhaps it is time to evolve through cooperation. The Devourer response was immediate and surprising. We accept, but how do we convince our respective forces to stop fighting? The answer came from Dr. Kim Sora's research team. Using the same biological techniques that had been developed as weapons, they could create symbiotic organisms that would allow devourers to gain sustenance without consuming other life forms. We can give you what you need to survive without requiring you to destroy others, she explained during the negotiations. The war ended not with a great explosion or dramatic surrender, but with a simple command broadcast on all frequencies. Ceasefire. Begin cooperation protocols. The transformation that followed was gradual but revolutionary. Devourer bioships began working alongside human vessels to establish research stations in deep space. Former enemies collaborated on projects that neither species could have completed alone. Captain Nam Jae-hoon found himself commanding joint human devourer squadrons that patrolled the galactic rim, protecting civilization from threats that neither species had faced before. Wing Commander Yoon Dae-ho trained former devourer warriors in human tactics while learning their biological adaptation techniques. The exchange of knowledge pushed both species toward capabilities they had never imagined. The Galactic Council, having witnessed the price of survival, granted both humanity and the reformed devourers permanent authority over galactic defense. The decision was controversial, but practical. Two species that pushed each other to evolutionary peaks through conflict, Elder Counselor Vextar observed, are probably the best guardians we could ask for. Captain Lee Hyun's final mission report, submitted to Earth Command 6 months after the end of the war, contained observations that would influence galactic policy for centuries. The legends our ancestors told about humanity being guardians of the galaxy were incomplete, he wrote. They spoke of humans as lone protectors, but the truth is more complex. We are guardians, but so are our former enemies. Through conflict, both species evolved beyond what either could have become alone. Admiral Choi Ji-won established the Joint Defense Command on a space station built from both human technology and devourer bioengineering. The structure itself was a symbol of what cooperation could achieve. Human precision combined with devourer adaptability created something entirely new. The galaxy is safer now than it has ever been, she reported to the Council during the first anniversary of the war's end. Two species that understand the true cost of conflict are watching over civilization. Engineer Bae Jisoo worked alongside former devourer bioengineers to develop technologies that neither species could have imagined separately. Their joint projects included healing systems that could repair entire planets and defense networks that adapted to threats faster than any enemy could evolve. We spent centuries preparing to fight each other, she observed to her mixed team of human and devourer researchers. Now we spend our time building things together. I prefer this approach. Dr. Kim Sora's research took on entirely new directions as she studied the symbiotic relationships between the two species. Her laboratories became centers of learning, where former enemies shared knowledge that advanced both civilizations. The biological weapons we created to destroy them ended up saving them, she noted in her research journals. Sometimes the most devastating attacks become the